Okay, Vinyl Tag 2024, my first attempt at a Vinyl Tag video. I think along with pretty much 90% of everyone who's doing this, I'm going with the Rob Walker questions. I'll put his video in the description, and I'm going to do my best to one take this. Don't think it's likely. I have a bad habit of rambling a lot, so if I cut myself off suddenly while talking about an album, just know I just repeated myself for the next 5 minutes. You didn't miss out on any information. So, all right, let's get straight into the countdown here. Question one: favorite record you purchased in 2023? That one I could probably come up with a more interesting answer, but I'll just go with my favorite release of the year, which is "The Fear of Fear" by Spiritbox. Spiritbox, for anyone who doesn't know, Canadian metalcore band. Fantastic, fantastic group. I say Canadian. I think only half the band is Canadian. Courtney and Mike. The Canadian half, anyway, from Victoria, I believe. But yeah, just a phenomenal metal band. Not that the whole thing is it's only 6 tracks. Not that the whole thing is especially metal. Like a good half of it is a bit more low key. So if you're looking for maybe a gateway band to get into some metal, this might be a good one for you. Courtney has an incredible voice, not just in a standard great singing voice, but she can scream with the best of them. So yeah, obviously if it's my favorite release of the year, I highly recommend it. But yeah, there's my number one, Spiritbox. Number two is the last record you bought in 2023, and that would be Coheed and Cambria's Good Apollo. This is okay. So anyone who doesn't listen to Coheed already, it's a very confusing band, not just with the music itself, but this is their third album, despite the fact that there's a giant 4 on it, and it's also part 1 of a of a couple albums. So yeah, it's their third album, and it's a part 1 and has a giant 4 on it. Anyway, Coheed, I feel like most people know Coheed and Cambria. If not, just a phenomenal rock band. I guess you could just put it as simply as that, kind of prog. So yeah, highly recommend. I don't need to end everything with highly recommend. I highly recommend basically everything I'm showing in this. But last album I bought of 2023, which actually I bought not New Year's Eve, but December 30th. I grabbed this one at my local store. Check it out. I don't know why I'm saying check it out every time. I'm gonna stop. That's the last number. That's the last time I'm saying check it. See what I mean about rambling? Number 3 is a band or singer who released 2 or more albums in the same year. So we're already running into problems for me. As you can tell, I don't have the biggest collection. There's another shelf down here, but I have just over 250 records, so I can't really be pulling out too many very strange ones. But I initially thought, the first one that came to mind, because I mean a lot of what I have is very modern, so the first thing that came to mind was Green Day with Uno, Dos, and Trey in the same year, but they all sucked, and obviously I don't have them on vinyl. They all sucked. So I'm kind of cheating with this answer, but Periphery, Juggernaut, Alpha, and Omega, it's a 2-in-1 on vinyl, so it doesn't really count as 2 separate releases. But I mean, if you're streaming it, then it's 2 separate releases, even though they came out the same day. So I think I'm probably cheating with this answer already on question 3. But Periphery, prog metal, for the way I describe Periphery, is prog metal for people who don't like prog metal. If you're more into an angsty metalcore type of thing, I don't know. Okay, if you could only listen to music from one decade, which decade would you choose? That's tough. I'm in my 20s. I'm in my late 20s now. So, while I think a lot of people would be picking 70s or 80s here, I'm only technically a 90s kid. Realistically, I grew up in the 2000s. So it's basically between the 2000s, 2010s, and 2020s. And it sounds weird to say 2020s because we're just starting 2024, but the 2020s are off to a great start for music, at least for me, and my personal taste. But I think it's tough. It's tough. Like some of my favorite albums of all time were from the 2000s, but I think I got to go 2010s. I think if you were to look at my top 10 albums of all time, it'd be an even split down the middle between 2000s and 2010s. But once you kind of look for not necessarily quantity over quality, but just like when you expand it to my top maybe 25, 30 albums of all time, then the 2010s start taking over. So at that point, if you're just picking one decade, I think you got to go for what has the most. So a few examples of what I'd be listening to a lot if I was just listening to 2010s. Neck Deep's Life's Not Out to Get You. Sleep Talk by Dayseeker. Common Courtesy, A Day to Remember. Prequel by Ghost. And last but not least, if I don't even know with the glare if you'll be able to see the cover. Anyway, That's the Spirit by Bring Me the Horizon. I don't know if there's that much variety in there, but just, a few of my favorites from the 2010s. I just realized that through all of that, I've been staring at my camera's like screen rather than the lens. So if it looks like I'm talking to someone sitting right next to you, that's why. Actually, I should probably double check this. I think we're on number 5 here. Our show record by a band or a singer from Manchester. It's gonna like, I think 80% of these are gonna be the exact same thing. But What's the Story? Morning Glory, Oasis. I actually lived in the UK for the past 2 years. Not too far from Manchester, in Leicester, so a good couple hours away. It was much closer to like Birmingham or Nottingham, as far as like happening music areas. One thing I wanted to do very badly in the 2 years I was living there, I wanted to go to Sifters Records, and I was doing it again. I was looking next anyway. I really, really wanted to go to Sifters Records, because not in this album, it's in Definitely Maybe. On the song Shaker Maker, they reference Sifters Records. And it's just one of those places I had wanted to go. Never got around to it. I was in Manchester several times, just couldn't really fit it in with anything else I was doing there. But yeah, What's the Story? Morning Glory is an absolute classic. I think this has both my personal favorite Oasis song, being Some Might Say, and then I think the objectively correct opinion is either Champagne Supernova or Don't Look Back in Anger is like the best Oasis song. One or the other, depending on how you're feeling that day. So, yeah, I mean, you can't go wrong with Morning Glory. All right, which band or singer did you listen to the most in 2023? According to Spotify, that would be Bad Omens, and a lot of that was from this album, The Death of Peace of Mind. So, Bad Omens is, I don't know if anyone's gonna have, I don't know if anyone's gonna show Oasis and then Bad Omens in their video back to back like this. I might be the first to ever do that. But yeah, Bad Omens is a really cool, I mean, it's like any other metal band that I love where the metal elitists are going to be like, that's not really metal. I mean, it's just, they're all over the place with their sound, especially on this album. Yeah, Bad Omens, I mean, like, I would highly recommend any of their albums, but this is by far their best. It has the most variety in the sound. Got like some synthy, like just like practically pop songs on here, and then you have like some of their heaviest stuff with like Artificial Suicide. So number 7 is Show 7 inches, and I'm hoping we don't have to do more 7 inches next year because I don't really collect 7 inches. So this is most of them. This is most of what I have. But we'll start out with, I don't know where I want to put these. We'll start off with My Chemical Romance, Vampires Will Never Hurt You. It's a flex disc, limited edition flex. You can actually see in the back there, a little floppy. Don't know how many of these were pressed, but it was offered to the top listeners on Spotify. So I grabbed this while I could. Yeah, it's for the 20th anniversary of the release of I Brought You My Bullets, You Brought Me Your Love. So really glad I was able to grab this now because they're kind of tough to track down and they're not the cheapest thing in the world. So glad I grabbed that while I could. A Day to Remember, Attack of the Killer B-Sides. This one is kind of interesting. It's got Right Where You Want Me to Be, which is a Christmas song or Christmas adjacent song. Their cover of Since You've Been Gone by Kelly Clarkson. An acoustic version of another song about the weekend, which is on their album Homesick. And then Over My Head, Cable Car, which is a cover from The Fray. So just kind of a weird mix of a whole bunch of stuff, but some fun artwork on this one. Next up, Beartooth, B-sides from their album Disease, which, funny enough, actually has my favorite song from that. If you're looking at it like the entire album and the B-sides, Takeover, which is on here, is my favorite song from that album. I'm not going to redo that take because that's towards the end of it. Anyway, Beartooth. Ghost, 7 Inches of Satanic Panic. This one's got Mary on a Cross and Kiss the Go-Goat. 2 songs that, they kind of released this out of nowhere, I'm pretty sure, if I remember correctly, when this came out, which would have been like 2019 maybe? 2019, but like the lore of Ghost is that these came out in 1969, and sounds correct for that. These are 2 really fun songs. If you haven't checked out Ghost, highly recommend you check this out. 2 really, really fun songs, and 2 songs that have become a staple in the live set list. So absolutely recommend checking this out. I should have put these together. Beartooth again. These are 2 songs on here: The Past is Dead and Skin, which are 2 of my favorite songs from Below, which is one of my favorite albums of all time. And this is actually hand numbered, if I can get that. I have no idea if that's going to focus or not. Anyway, hand numbered. This is from, I think it was Revolver magazine did an exclusive thing where you order the Beartooth feature magazine and you get the 7-inch included in there. And honestly, I mostly ordered it for the 7-inch. So 2 of my favorite Beartooth songs, hand numbered out of 500. I think it's pretty cool. Spanish love songs. This one has got 2 tracks on it, Losers and No Reason to Believe. Losers is on the album Brave Faces Everyone, but it's a different version. There's a single version, and then I guess they redid it for the album. And No Reason to Believe, as far as I can tell, isn't available on any other release. I mean, you can stream it, whatever, but this is the only place you're going to find it. So I actually grabbed this with when I pre-ordered the new album that came out last year. They had a package including this, so pretty happy to grab this. And then we'll wrap things up with USS, Ubiquitous Synergy Seeker. This was a 2-piece band. Well, first of all, the 7-inch itself has 2 songs from their second to last album, I believe. Anyway, this is a record store day release in, 2021 probably. Signed by the band, being just the 2 guys. Really strange group, USS. If you've never heard USS, one guy is singing, playing acoustic guitar, and the other guy is a DJ. So just a really strange mix, but and a lot of their music is very hit or miss, but there's a few songs that I absolutely love by these guys. I went to go see them on their final tour. I got to go to their final show in Ottawa, and it was a blast. So yeah. Okay, next up, who's coming to your dinner party? So it's pick 4 musicians, dead or alive, for a dinner party. I figured let's do the weirdest thing I possibly can. Let's just invite 4 singers who have been at some point my favorite. As a child, as a little guy, we're going with Bryan Adams. Then we're fast forwarding to high school. I guess middle school and high school. And guest number 2 is going to be Chad Kroeger. Nickelback was my favorite band on the planet for a good chunk of my childhood. I would say from ages 11 through 15. Guest number 3, Gerard Way from My Chemical Romance. It's already so weird, isn't it? Like, what a weird group. My Chemical Romance being sort of towards the end of high school. And last but absolutely not least, Gord Downie from The Tragically Hip. I was a little bit late to the hip. I mean, like, growing up in Canada, especially being in Ontario, you're always hearing the hip everywhere. But I didn't really dive deep into the hip until like well after high school, like well into college. But yeah, that's my lineup for my dinner party. Okay, number 9 is choose a musician who passed away in 2023. Ryan Sue, guitarist for Polaris, passed away at the age of 26 last year, just before the release of this album. yeah, I mean, like, don't know as far as I know, we still don't know the details on what happened. Not that we need to. I mean, regardless of how he passed away, it's a tragedy. No matter what the context of it is. He was only 26, way too young. Um, so yeah, I'll go with Ryan Sue. Okay, if you could only select one country to listen to music from, what would it be? And it breaks my heart as a Canadian because there are so many fantastic Canadian bands out there. Some of my favorites on the planet are Canadian. But again, it's kind of like when I was narrowing down the decade, when you kind of take a look at the bigger picture and you start worrying more about like having more than a handful of records to listen to. I gotta pick the U.S. And again, it breaks my heart as a Canadian to pick the States, but I have to. I mean, my favorite album of all time is The Black Parade, My Chemical Romance. Just how many people are American? There's just so much cool music coming out of there all the time. Every year there are Americans usually topping my favorite music of the year lists. Yeah, I got to go with the States on that one, which, fine. All right, name 3 vinyl community channels you found this year. Not only am I, obviously new to making videos about records, this being my first, I've never really gotten into the vinyl community on YouTube all that much. There is one channel I've watched consistently for years, though, Noble Records. This guy Dylan in North Carolina, he owns a record store. I was watching his channel before he had his actual physical record store. So I've been watching him for years. Hopefully, if there's a question like this next year, I can actually fill it out and give a proper answer. Okay, show a record that you bought when you were a teenager. Now, I didn't buy my first record until I was 21. So as a teenager, I was buying CDs. And the only CD I ever bought that I also have on vinyl is this one here. It's a Slash featuring Miles Kennedy and the Conspirators, Apocalyptic Love. Yeah, I actually remember the day I bought this, weirdly enough. Not the record, but the CD. I was out with my buddy Matt. I don't know why we were in Walmart, but we were in Walmart, and I saw the CD, and I was like, I'm gonna grab that CD because they had, let's see here, what are the big singles? Like Your Lie was on the radio all the time. Anastasia, Standing in the Sun. Some really great songs on this one. When did this come out, actually? Is this 2012? Yeah, 2012 looks like. We got burritos after I bought the... we went from Walmart to Mucho Burrito. I don't know why I remember that, but... Anyway. All right, number 13, I think. Show a funk or soul album. I don't really collect a whole lot of that stuff, so really the first thing that came to mind is Hail Satin, the DGs, which, for those who don't know, is it's the Foo Fighters doing Bee Gees covers. This has caught a lot of flack over the years. I mean, here's the flip side. It's Foo Fighters. This has caught a lot of flack since it came out. A lot of people saying, why would they do this? And then everyone else saying, because it's fun. So, kind of a boring answer on my end. So if I was to do something a little bit more fun, I don't have it on vinyl because they don't have... This is the only physical release that they have, cassette, but Nightlife. Highly recommend Nightlife, a soul punk band from Baltimore. I can't recommend these guys enough. So if you're choosing between these two, I mean, DGs is fun, but Nightlife is incredible. Okay, show a record that you think everyone has, and then show a record that you don't think anybody has. So as far as a record that everyone has, I've kind of avoided buying the standard, the most common stuff. I don't have Rumors. I don't have Nevermind. I don't have any Beatles records, mostly because my dad has a pretty big record collection, so he has all the Beatles records anyone could ever want, I'm sure. So I just haven't bothered investing in the Beatles stuff yet. So as far as the most common thing, probably The Color and the Shape. I think. I mean, who? If anyone collects rock albums, who doesn't have this? I mean, this is typically considered the crown jewel of Foo albums. So I think this is probably the most common album I have. If not this, I already showed it earlier when I was talking about Bryan Adams, but maybe Reckless is maybe a more common album to have, but I already showed that one. So I was like, I'll go with the Foos. And then an album that nobody has. I don't know about nobody, but New Low by We Were Sharks, local Ottawa band. Fantastic album. There's only 100 pressings of this version. This is the solid pink. So if we're getting like really specific and saying that like, okay, well there's only 100 people that have this specific pressing, then yeah, I don't imagine many of them are making YouTube videos because this is still pretty niche. But there are more pressings that have like 100 copies each. So like, hey, if you're someone that owns this album too, let me know in the comments. Comment that you have it, because I've never met anyone who has this album. So yeah, New Low, We Were Sharks, great pop punk local band. Check them out. I did it again. I said I wasn't going to, and then I did. She's Great, a record by a female artist that you bought in 2023. I unfortunately didn't buy too many albums in 2023, so I don't have something new. I probably could have picked Spirit Box, but that was gonna be my number one. So I'll go with Paramore Self-Titled, which I finally got last year. I avoided this album for a long time, because to me, Paramore sold out. I love Riot, Brand New Eyes, but then when they came out with this album, even though I didn't hear anything I didn't like, I was like, this, you guys aren't pop punk anymore. But no, this album is fantastic. It's honestly, it's right up there with like Riot and Brand New Eyes. It's so good. Next up, number 16, the favorite video you posted on your channel in 2023 and the favorite video you watched on the vinyl community in 2023. So this being my first vinyl related video, as I've mentioned, I don't have one to go back to. So I'll just suggest, I did my top 25 albums of the year, just very recently. So check that one out. And then as far as my favorite vinyl community video, as I mentioned before as well, I've really only watched Noble Records consistently. But I would say my favorite video was when Dylan did his he did a room tour. Like he's done some store tours and stuff, but it was his room tour at home where he showed his setup and his just walls of records, and that's where I hope to be someday. Not in his house, Dylan, if you're watching this for some reason, I hope to be, that's just, I hope to have that kind of setup someday. Right now, like I said, I only have just over like a couple hundred, I have like just over 250 records. So no need to have a designated room for it, but someday I would love to, try and maybe not like replicate that setup, but have something similar, have like a designated and like a dedicated music room. I think that'd be great. An album you describe as a 90s classic, going with the Tragically Hip, covering up the name, Road Apples. If you're also Canadian, the royalty that is Gord Downie and every member of the Tragically Hip. They have two Gords. I don't know if you knew that. A lot of people just know Gord Downie if you're not a Hip fan, but the Hip, they've got two Gords. Yeah, Road Apples is my favorite album from the Hip, which is like picking your favorite kid, because they're all fantastic. I don't have any kids yet, so I rank these for now. Eventually I'll be ranking my kids. And for those who don't know, obviously like the Hip kind of broke into northeastern US, but it's nothing like it is in Canada. Like these guys are royalty. Their final concert ever in 2016 was broadcast on CBC. And so to put into perspective how insanely huge this band is here, even now, just about 8 years later, which is wild. 11.7 million people tuned into that concert. It's estimated that at least 11.7 million Canadians were watching that show. At the time, there was about 36 million people in Canada. So right about 1 in 3 people were watching the final Tragically Hip show. So that's nuts. Coming down to the wire here. If I could walk into a cover and want to be a part of. This is kind of a cop out answer because it's a live album, so the cover's just the concert. But Alter Bridge live at the Royal Albert Hall, phenomenal show. They've got the Parallax Orchestra, who I believe it's the same orchestra who works with a lot of these rock bands. I mean, Alter Bridge, Bring Me the Horizon, I think had at least the same conductor. Anyway, the Royal Albert Hall is a bucket list venue for me. Someday I'm going to go to a show there. Didn't manage to do it while I was living over in the UK. Someday I'm going to get to a show there. And then, Alter Bridge. I've never seen Alter Bridge either. I've seen Miles Kennedy do a solo show. I've seen him play with Slash, but never been to an Alter Bridge show. So just kind of a twofer in this one here. And again, it's kind of a cop-out. Obviously, I'm going to pick the one with the concert on the cover, but be a phenomenal show to go see. Number 19, it's like a greatest hits album. That would be Young Beauties and Fools by the Glorious Sons. The Glorious Sons, their newest album this past year, is the first time I've ever been disappointed by the band. It was just, like, the album was fine. Everything before that they've released has been fantastic. But this is a step above the rest. Just an absolutely incredible album. And if I was left in charge of deciding, like, say like a 12-track best of album for the Glorious Sons, like 8 or 9 would be on this album. 8 or 9 would be coming from this album here. So cannot recommend this album enough. I did it again. Check them out. Can't recommend this album enough. It's phenomenal. It's my number 2 album of all time behind the Black Parade. I should really tell you what it is. They're a rock band. It's a rock band. And the last one is show an album released in 1974. Well, I'm a little kid. I'm a little 27-year-old child, and like I said before, a lot of my albums are very modern, so I don't have anything from 1974. So the closest thing I have is 78. It's the Bee Gees, Sgt. Pepper's, which I learned after I bought this, because I saw this, I was like, holy shit, this is the weirdest thing I've ever seen. It's the Bee Gees did a Sgt. Pepper's movie, where George Martin produced all the music and arranged it, which I believe he said later on that he regretted doing. But I just saw the track list on here and I couldn't believe it. I was like, there's obviously the Bee Gees. Steve Martin is on here. Alice Cooper and the Bee Gees did Because. Aerosmith did a version of Come Together. Like, it was just the weirdest thing ever to me when I bought it. So I bought it, came home, looked into it, realized that I had paid way too much for this because I probably could have bought it online for $5, but that's what happens when you're going through antique shops and something you've never seen before pops up. You're willing to pay too much for the album. But yeah, I think that's where I'm gonna call it. I don't have a 74 album. The goal is, I guess, if they're doing every 50 years, I gotta find an album from 1975 to buy this year so I can talk about it next year. So there it is. That's my first ever vinyl tag video. Hopefully, even if you didn't find any new music you enjoyed watching this, hopefully you enjoyed my rambling. Hopefully I'll be doing a lot more record-related videos this year. Definitely hoping to up my upload rate a lot this coming year compared to last year, where I just started last year and I was just kind of testing it out, seeing what it was going to be like. But yeah, thanks for tuning in. Like, subscribe, comment, whatever you want. Tell me my records suck. Tell me I need to buy more. I do. Someday I'll be able to afford. My goal is to someday be able to afford my top 25 every year, like as a designated, like, finish my list, which can be expensive. I did pretty well this year, but yeah. I don't know why I mentioned that. It has nothing to do with this video. See you guys around. Like and subscribe again. Make that algorithm happy. All right. See ya.